Professor Tak watched the 5 human students enter his classroom with mixed feelings. His blue skin wrinkled with concern as he tapped his long fingers against the teaching console. These humans were from Earth, a planet so dangerous that most galactic citizens could hardly believe anything survived there. Yet here they were, walking into his practical survival course as if they were going to a casual meal rather than potentially life-threatening training. "They don't even have protective gear," muttered Rill, Professor Tak's teaching assistant. The thin, pale alien's eyes blinked rapidly in concern. All the other students prepared properly. Indeed, the 30 non-human students were dressed in various forms of protective suits, helmets, and safety equipment. Some wore breathing apparatus despite the room's atmosphere being certified safe for all known species. Others had emergency beacons attached to their clothing. A few even wore full environmental suits with reinforced plating. Meanwhile, the humans, June, Hannah, Taehyun, Minji, and Hyuk wore simple clothes. June had on a plain blue shirt and pants with many pockets. Hannah wore a light jacket over her shirt. Taehyun had only a t-shirt with some Earth writing on it. Minji and Hyuk looked similarly underdressed for what the other students clearly considered a dangerous situation. Maybe their translators malfunctioned? Rill suggested. They might not understand this as the survival course. Professor Tak shook his head. No, their files say they're all top students. They know where they are. He straightened his posture. Let's begin. As the humans found seats, the other students shifted uneasily. A small group of Malorians with delicate, crystal-like skin structures moved to the far side of the room. A bulky Cross student, despite being 3 times the size of any human, covered his breathing holes nervously when Minji sat nearby. Professor Tak cleared his throat. Welcome to Practical Survival 101. I am Professor Tak, Master Survival Specialist with 20 galactic cycles of experience. He gestured to the large screen behind him showing various hostile environments. This semester, we will learn techniques to survive unexpected dangers in many environments. The non-human students took careful notes. The humans just listened with slight smiles. We have a special situation this year, Professor Tak continued. For the first time, our class includes students from classification DEW3 planet. That's Death World, Category 3, for those unfamiliar with the terminology. A wave of nervous whispers filled the room. Earth, Tak said simply, and the whispers grew louder. June, the tallest of the humans, raised his hand. Professor, we've read about this Death World classification. It seems strange to us. Earth isn't that dangerous. Several students gasped. A small Vendari student in the front row actually fell off their seat. Not dangerous, repeated Professor Tak with wide eyes. Your planet has extreme temperature ranges that would kill most species in minutes. Your atmosphere contains oxygen, a highly reactive gas that causes most materials to break down. You have regular storms, earthquakes, floods, and areas with deadly radiation. Even your plant life is often poisonous or armed with spikes. Hyuk, the youngest of the humans, shrugged. That's just normal for us. Your survival rates must be terrible, said a tentacled student from the back. Actually, we're about 8 billion people now, Hannah replied. The room fell completely silent. Professor Tak recovered first. Well, this supports exactly why this course exists. Different species face different challenges. What's deadly to one might be home to another. He touched his teaching console, bringing up the day's lesson plan. Today we'll start with basic environmental assessment. How to identify threats in unfamiliar surroundings. Taehyun raised his hand. Like camping? I'm not familiar with that term, Professor Tak said. It's when we go out into the wilderness on Earth for fun, Minji explained. We sleep outside under the stars, make food over fire, and enjoy nature. Once again, shocked silence filled the room. Several students looked like they might faint. You deliberately leave your shelters for enjoyment? Asked Rill, his voice barely a whisper. Sure, Hyuk nodded. My family goes every summer. We hike, swim in lakes, climb mountains. It's relaxing. Professor Tak realized this course was going to be very different from any he had taught before. These humans weren't just students from another world, they were from a reality the other students could barely comprehend. Where others saw danger, they saw normal life or even fun. Perhaps, he said carefully, our human friends can share some of their recreational survival techniques later in the semester. For now, let's start with the basics. He noticed the humans exchanging amused glances. This was going to be an interesting term indeed. The simulation field hummed to life as Professor Tak activated the environmental controls. The classroom transformed into a rocky landscape with strong winds and a rapidly dropping temperature. Dark clouds gathered overhead, promising rain within the hour. Today's challenge is simple, Professor Tak explained. Build a shelter that will protect you from the elements using only the materials provided. He pointed to piles of branches, rocks, and synthetic materials scattered around the area. Your shelter must withstand wind, rain, and keep your body temperature stable. The alien students immediately formed teams and approached the exercise with extreme caution. A group of slender Malorian students spent 20 minutes taking precise measurements of every branch before touching anything. 3 bulky Cross students triple-checked their protective suits before carefully collecting materials, using specialized tools to avoid direct contact. Remember to follow the safety protocol, Professor Tak called out. Environmental assessment first, then material testing, then structural planning. Only begin construction after completing all preliminary safety checks. Meanwhile, the 5 humans had already scattered across the field, gathering materials with their bare hands. June found a cluster of long, flexible branches and began weaving them together without hesitation. His fingers worked quickly, bending and securing the materials in a pattern that seemed random to observers but rapidly took shape as a frame. You need to measure those for load-bearing capacity, called a concerned student from across the field. June just smiled. They'll hold, he said confidently. Nearby, Hannah had collected several large, flat pieces of synthetic material. She positioned them against a rock wall to create a simple but effective windbreak. She worked methodically, securing each piece and testing its stability with a push of her hand. Minji had gathered small twigs and dry material into a neat pile. She knelt beside it and began rotating a stick between her palms against a flat piece of wood. Within minutes, a thin wisp of smoke appeared. She gently blew on the ember until a small flame emerged. Professor Tak's antennae shot straight up in alarm when he spotted the fire. He hurried over, his protective gear crinkling as he moved. "What are you doing?" he demanded. "Fire generation requires a safety permit and supervision." Minji looked up, surprised. "It's just a small fire for warmth. The temperature's dropping." "But the safety protocols." "The wind is coming from that direction," Minji explained patiently, pointing. "I've cleared the area of flammable materials and built a stone ring to contain it. It's perfectly safe." Professor Tak stared at the neatly arranged fire, then at Minji's bare hands. "Where are your safety gloves? And your thermal protection?" Across the field, Taehyun and Hyuk had already assembled a frame for a dome-shaped shelter. They were covering it with layers of branches and synthetic material, creating a tight, waterproof seal. "Humans!" Professor Tak called out, increasingly concerned. "You haven't consulted the shelter calculation guides. How do you know your structures will withstand the environmental conditions?" The 5 humans paused their work, exchanging amused glances. Taehyun shrugged. "We've done this before," he said simply. "On Earth, we call it camping for fun." A Vendari student with translucent skin dropped the branch it was carefully measuring. "Fun," the alien repeated, all 3 eyes blinking in confusion. "Yeah," Hyuk added, securing another branch to their shelter. "My family goes camping in the mountains every summer. Sometimes in the snow." "Deliberately?" "Without emergency requirements," asked another student, mandibles clicking in agitation. "It's relaxing," Hannah explained, continuing to work on her windbreak. "Being outdoors, building shelters, making fires. It's how we connect with nature." The alien students stared in complete disbelief. The concept of voluntarily exposing oneself to the elements, especially on a planet classified as a death world, was beyond their comprehension. Professor Tak watched as the humans continued working. Within 45 minutes, they had constructed a complete camp. The main shelter was sturdy and spacious enough for all 5 of them. The fire burned steadily, contained and controlled. They had even diverted a small water flow for easy access. Meanwhile, most of the alien teams were still in the planning stages, carefully calculating wind resistance factors and testing material stress tolerances. "But how do you know it will work?" a frustrated Malorian student finally asked June, pointing at the human shelter. June patted the structure. "Because we've made mistakes before and learned from them. This design works in much harsher conditions than this simulation." Professor Tak's teaching assistant approached, looking bewildered. "Should we adjust the difficulty level for the humans?" he whispered. "This seems too easy for them." "No," Professor Tak replied slowly, a new understanding dawning. "I think we're the ones who need to adjust." He watched as the humans sat comfortably by their fire, completely at ease in conditions the other students considered potentially deadly. Perhaps, he mused, there's more than one way to approach survival. The large training hall buzzed with activity as students prepared for the toxic environment exercise. Everyone wore standard protective suits with clear helmets, except the 5 humans who opted for minimal gear. This no longer surprised Professor Tak, though it still made him nervous. "Today we practice moving through areas with harmful airborne particles," he explained, standing beside a shimmering containment field. Behind the transparent barrier, green mist swirled in patterns. "Inside this field is a harmless simulation gas. It's designed to disorient but not cause lasting damage. Your task is to navigate through it to reach the exit point using proper techniques." The alien students checked their safety equipment again. The humans simply listened. "Remember," Professor Tak continued, "in real toxic situations, you must maintain calm and follow protocols. Panic leads to mistakes." Taehyun raised his hand. "What kind of gas is it, exactly?" "A synthetic compound that affects balance and causes mild confusion. For humans, it should have minimal effects given your respiratory system's unusual resilience." June nodded. "On Earth, we train for chemical emergencies too." Professor Tak activated the exercise sequence. "We'll proceed in groups of 6. First team, prepare to enter." The first group of alien students lined up at the entry point. A cross student led them, following textbook procedures for toxic environment navigation. They moved slowly through the green mist, communicating through their helmet systems. The second and third groups completed the exercise with similar caution. Then came the fourth group, which included Minji and Hyuk along with 4 alien students. As they entered the containment field, something changed. The green mist darkened and began swirling faster. Professor Tak glanced at his control panel, where warning lights suddenly flashed. "Field instability detected," announced the automated system. Before anyone could react, a loud pop echoed through the hall as the containment field collapsed completely. Green gas rushed outward, quickly filling the entire training space. The effect was immediate. Alien students began stumbling, some dropping to their knees as their systems reacted to the unexpected exposure. "Emergency protocols!" Professor Tak shouted, reaching for the control panel. His fingers fumbled as the gas began affecting him too. "Everyone activate your emergency." He never finished. The room descended into chaos as students panicked. Some crawled toward exits, others curled into protective balls, their training forgotten in the face of real danger. But the humans moved differently. Instead of panicking, they acted with surprising speed and coordination. "Coverings for your faces," Hyuk shouted to the nearest students. He ripped pieces of fabric from his clothing, quickly fashioning makeshift masks. He showed aliens how to tie them over their breathing apparatus. Minji had grabbed her water bottle, pouring liquid onto pieces of cloth. "Put these over your breathing holes," she instructed a group of struggling Vendari students. "The water will filter some of the particles." Across the room, Taehyun had climbed onto a table. This way, he called, pointing to the nearest exit. Follow my voice if you can't see. Move low to the ground where the gas is thinner. June moved through the confusion with purpose. He found two Malorian students who had collapsed completely, their crystal-like bodies motionless. Without hesitation, he lifted one under each arm, beings that would be heavy for most species but seemed weightless to his Earth-developed muscles. He carried them toward the exit Tae-hyun was directing others to. Meanwhile, Hannah had reached the environmental control panel. The security system required instructor access, but her fingers moved quickly over the interface. Within seconds, she had bypassed the security protocols and activated the emergency ventilation system. Powerful fans whirred to life, beginning to clear the gas. Professor Tak, fighting through his own disorientation, watched in amazement as the humans efficiently managed a crisis that had completely overwhelmed everyone else. They hadn't hesitated for even a moment. 20 minutes later, the training hall was clear of gas. Medical teams had arrived to treat affected students, though thankfully no one suffered serious harm. The 5 humans, barely affected by the gas, helped comfort their alien classmates. When things calmed down, Professor Tak approached the humans, his mandibles still clicking with residual stress. "How did you know what to do?" he asked, genuine astonishment in his voice. "You had no warning, no time to prepare, yet you acted as if you had rehearsed for exactly this scenario." The humans exchanged glances, and Hannah shrugged. "We didn't know what to do, specifically," she replied. "But on Earth, improvising during emergencies is just." Tuesday. Tuesday? Professor Tak repeated, confused. "Just a normal day," Hyuk explained. "Earth has so many potential dangers that adapting quickly isn't special, it's necessary. Floods, fires, storms, we grow up learning to think fast." Professor Tak looked at them with new understanding. "I've been teaching survival for 20 years, focusing on rules and protocols. But you 5, you showed today that true survival isn't about memorizing steps. It's about staying calm and using what you have," June said, still comforting one of the Malorians he had rescued. "Exactly," Professor Tak nodded slowly. "Perhaps there's more to learn from Deathworlders than I realized." The classroom felt different as students filed in the week after the gas incident. The normal seating pattern had changed. Alien students who had previously kept their distance now chose seats near the humans. Small groups gathered around June and Minji before class even started, asking questions in hushed tones. Professor Tak noticed the shift immediately. He watched as Hyuk showed a curious Vendari student how to tie different knots using a simple piece of cord. Nearby, Taehyun was explaining something to 3 Malorians who listened with all their sensory organs fully extended, a sign of intense interest in their species. When Professor Tak called the class to order, the room quieted, but the energy remained different. Even his teaching assistant, Ril, seemed changed. The normally procedure-focused alien now carried a small notebook filled with observations about human methods. "Before we begin today's lesson," Professor Tak said, "I wish to acknowledge what happened last week." He set down his teaching materials. "Our emergency protocols failed. The containment field collapsed, creating a real crisis. And while most of us, myself included, struggled to respond, our human classmates demonstrated remarkable abilities." The alien students murmured in agreement, many turning to look at the 5 humans with newfound respect. "This has led me to reconsider our approach," Professor Tak continued. "The standard curriculum focuses on careful planning and following established protocols. These remain valuable, but clearly there are other survival skills we haven't properly addressed." He gestured toward the humans. "Today, I've asked our human colleagues to demonstrate their approach to survival scenarios." The 5 humans exchanged amused glances before moving to the front of the room. They seemed surprised but pleased by the request. "We're not experts," Hannah began, "we're just humans who grew up on Earth." "That's exactly the point," Professor Tak replied. "Your planet has shaped your species to handle emergencies in ways different from ours." June stepped forward first. He picked up a standard emergency kit and emptied its contents on the table. "You all have these kits, right?" he asked. The alien students nodded. "But have you thought about other ways to use these items?" He took a simple light stick, designed for one-time emergency illumination, and broke it in half. The aliens gasped at what they perceived as destroying equipment, but then watched as June used the glowing fluid to mark a trail on the floor. One light stick can become emergency markers for many people, he explained. Resources aren't always used as intended. Minji demonstrated next. She showed how a standard breathing filter, when combined with fabric and water, could serve multiple people in an emergency rather than just one. Sharing resources keeps more people alive, she said simply. The most dramatic moment came when Taehyun asked for a volunteer. A brave Cross student stepped forward, towering over the human. Pretend your leg is injured, Taehyun instructed. The Cross lay down, pretending to be hurt. Using only items from the standard kit plus his own clothing, Taehyun quickly fashioned a splint and bandage system that immobilized the injury. This is wilderness first aid, he explained while working. On Earth, help isn't always nearby. Sometimes you must treat injuries with whatever you have for hours or days before rescue. The alien students watched in fascination. The concept of being injured without immediate medical assistance was foreign to most of them. Their worlds had extensive emergency response systems that arrived within minutes of any accident. Hyuk demonstrated how to find safe drinking water in various environments, while Hannah showed techniques for signaling for help using minimal resources. The most important tool, June concluded, is quick thinking. Earth doesn't give you time to triple-check safety protocols. You either adapt quickly or you don't survive. The classroom fell silent as the alien students processed this information. For many, it was a complete revelation. Their home planets had evolved with such environmental stability that their species never developed the instinctual risk assessment and rapid response that humans took for granted. A small Florian student raised a trembling leaf hand. But how do you know what will work? Without calculations or testing? We don't always know, Hannah answered honestly. Sometimes we guess wrong. But doing something imperfect quickly is often better than doing nothing perfectly. Professor Tak watched his students absorb this concept. He could almost see their understanding of survival shifting. The formal protocols they had memorized were useful, but the human approach offered something their training had missed: adaptability. I believe, Professor Tak said as the demonstration concluded, we have much to learn from each other. From today forward, our class will combine both approaches: careful planning when possible, and quick adaptation when necessary. As the students broke into discussion groups, Professor Tak noticed something else new: the humans were learning too. They listened carefully as alien students explained the detailed reasoning behind safety protocols. This wasn't just humans teaching aliens, it was becoming a true exchange of survival knowledge across worlds. The simulation chamber hummed as it generated a harsh lunar landscape. Jagged rocks, deep craters, and a starry void replaced the classroom. The temperature dropped rapidly while gravity decreased to 1/6 of standard. Emergency alarms blared as a damaged spacecraft appeared, smoke pouring from its engines. Final examination begins now, announced the automated system. Scenario: your vessel has crash-landed on an uninhabited moon. Life support is failing. Rescue is 72 hours away. Your team must survive until then. Students moved into their assigned teams, each deliberately mixing species. Every team included at least one human paired with several alien students. This arrangement, once considered risky, was now seen as optimal after a semester of shared learning. Team 3 included Minji, 2 Malorians, and a Vendari. They exited their damaged ship, immediately assessing their surroundings. Atmosphere is thin but breathable with assistance, reported a Malorian, checking readings. Temperature will drop dangerously when we enter the shadow period. Minji nodded. Let's gather everything useful from the ship. We need shelter before dark. Across the field, Team 1 led by June was already salvaging materials from their crash site. The Florian member of their team, using knowledge of plant structures, quickly identified which parts of the ship could be repurposed as support beams for a shelter. Team 2, with Taehyun, faced a more serious challenge. Their ship had landed on unstable ground above a deep crevasse. The Cross student, using its natural strength, helped secure the vessel while others retrieved supplies.
3 hours until shadow period, warned the simulation system.
In the observation room, Professor Tack watched with Rill and several other faculty members who had come to witness the famous Deathworlder class in action.
Notice the difference from previous years, Tack pointed out.
They're moving much faster, but not carelessly. They've abandoned the standard protocols entirely, noted a concerned faculty member.
No, Tack corrected.
They're integrating protocols with adaptability.
Watch.
On the screens, they could see Team 4, led by Hyuk, constructing a shelter. An alien student carefully calculated load-bearing requirements while Hyuk improvised a heating system using damaged power cells. Their combined approach worked better than either method alone.
Hannah's Team 5 faced the greatest challenge when 2 of their members were injured in a simulated moonquake.
The alien students began standard first aid while Hannah created emergency stretchers and reorganized their shelter plans to accommodate the injured. As darkness fell in the simulation, all 5 teams had established functioning shelters, communication systems, and resource management plans. They're working together perfectly, Rill observed. The humans provide quick decisions while the others contribute detailed knowledge. Professor Tack nodded proudly. They've learned from each other.
The examination continued through simulated days and nights. Teams faced radiation storms, equipment failures, and resource depletion.
Unlike previous classes where panicked students often failed under pressure, these mixed teams handled each crisis with remarkable effectiveness.
When the simulation finally ended, students emerged tired but successful.
Every team had survived until rescue arrived.
It was an unprecedented perfect score for the class. The graduation ceremony afterward was unlike any previous one.
Instead of the formal protocol recitation, Professor Tack simply stood before his students in the auditorium. I've been teaching this course for 20 cycles, he announced, looking at each student in turn. But this year, I learned more than I taught.
He turned toward the 5 humans standing among their alien classmates.
Our human friends didn't need safety lessons, they needed to teach us that safety isn't about following protocols, but about developing the adaptability to handle the unexpected. The room filled with appreciative clicks, whistles, and hums, the various sounds of approval from different species. Each of you came here with different evolutionary histories, Tack continued.
Some from worlds of peace and stability, others from a planet that tests its inhabitants daily. Together, you've created something better than either approach alone.
After the ceremony, students gathered in small groups, exchanging contact information and making plans to stay connected. The 5 humans found themselves surrounded by classmates who now viewed them not as strange Deathworlders but as valued friends.
A small Florian student with delicate leaf structures approached Minji shyly. Its translator conveyed a nervous trembling in its voice.
Is it true what I heard? The Florian asked.
That human children intentionally slide down snowy mountains for recreation? Minji laughed warmly. Yes, we call it skiing or snowboarding. It's really fun. But the cold. The speed.
The risk of injury. The Florian's leaves quivered in horror and fascination. Wait until I tell you about skateboarding, Minji replied with a smile. That's when we stand on a small board with wheels and roll down hard surfaces at high speeds, sometimes doing flips in the air. The Florian's eyes widened, all 3 of them focusing intently on Minji.
You do this for enjoyment? Absolutely. I could show you videos sometime. As they walked together toward the exit, the Florian peppered Minji with questions about human recreational dangers.
Behind them, Professor Tack watched with satisfaction.
The real education, he realized, was just beginning.